Welcome to the Author's Edge radio show with Guy L. Freer. Each week on their show, they help authors create books that transform our lives and imaginations. Through radio excellence, they create a unique community resource, one that promotes, connects, and fosters a sense of well-being. They serve listeners by providing outlets for their creative skills and energies, and they help them flourish in the competitive marketplace. Their weekly show provides intros, writing spotlights, helps you in promoting your book, your writing, your publishing, your marketing tidbits, and much more. Okay, audience, here's the Author's Edge radio show with Guy L. Freer.
And welcome to Author's Edge. Join us for lively conversations with writers, publishers, songwriters, illustrators, and artists diving into the art of storytelling. Catch us every Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 7 a.m. on KWRH FM 929 and KXOK FM 1029, or stream online KXOK1029.com, KWRH929.com, and via free apps iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and TuneIn. The show air also nationwide Monday to Friday at 8 a.m. on the My Genre Radio Network. Missed an episode? Find us anytime on SoundCloud, YouTube, or at authorsedge.org. Now that's authorsedge.org, O-R-G. And it's great to be back in the studio. Mark is doing his thing with Ralph and my driver. Oh, he's so delightful. He kept me awake so that I'd be able to come, because I just came in from Phoenix and I'm like, one eye open, one eye closed. And I want to welcome today's guest, a dynamic husband and wife team with a curiosity about hometown that led to something truly special. You know how some people dig into their family tree and find stories worthy sharing? Well, Annie and Tony Wessler took that a step further, and they have discoveries into a powerful book that celebrates history, imagination, and community. So let's start with that. Annie and Tony Wessler are the husband and wife duo behind Legends and Legacy, The Day They Hanged the Founder, which I really am curious about, Sullivan's remarkable 1956 centennial. Their earlier collaboration, Jill's First Day at School, was a personal project in honor of Annie's mother, Alice, an amazing woman who raised 9 children, 4 born profoundly deaf, to be independent and successful adults. With Legends and Legacy, Annie and Tony broadened their narrative craft, weaving a well-researched image-rich account that explores how the small town of Sullivan, Missouri, shaped by pioneers, the railroad, and war, chose to celebrate its centennial through pageants, parades, and acts of remembrance. Their work demonstrates that history isn't confined to textbooks. It lives in local stories preserved by ordinary citizens. Annie, who holds two engineering degrees. There's a story there, with no doubt. From Washington University in St. Louis, brings analytical precision and research expertise to the partnership. Tony, whose professional background centered on people and communication, provides the storytelling warmth. Now retired from their entrepreneurial careers, the couple devote their energy to projects that bring them joy, blending curiosity, cooperation, and creativity to ensure local history endures. Now it's your turn to talk. Okay. What gave you the idea to write this book?
You can say because it was your dad's.
Okay. My dad, who was a Sullivan resident, hometown boy, except for the 25 years that he was in the Air Force. When he passed away, we found a whole trove of 35 millimeter slides, color slides from the 1956 centennial pageant. Sullivan chose to pick 1956. There was a little bit of discrepancy on the specific age, but they finally lit on a specific date and year and decided to have a party of all ages to celebrate the centennial. The local photography club at the time took a lot of slides and some 16 millimeter movies. And the slides that we had were getting little bit deteriorated. They were starting to get that reddish tone. And as we looked at them and converted them over and kind of cleaned them up and tried to color correct them a little bit, they told a story of visual story of what happened. What we didn't know was the background, and this is where Annie came in. We began to research with the local papers and some county papers. We went down to the library downtown St. Louis and joined, and that gave us the ability to do a lot of research from our own kitchen table. Annie would just find story after story in her online research and print off page after page after page. And we started trying to match the stories with the pictures and put them in the chronological order that seemed best fitting to the news.
What stories?
Go ahead.
Well, one of the stories, it was very interesting. In the pictures, we saw this person being hung.
That's what I want to know. I want to know the good
Everybody
stuff.
wants to go right to
Yeah, they want to go right
the
to
meat
the
of the
hanging.
story.
Yeah. I
And
mean, you start out with the title of the book is Legends and Legacy, the Day They Hanged the Founder.
Yes.
Sullivan's Remarkable 1956. And I want to know who they hung and why.
Well, they hung the founder.
Why?
And that's what we didn't believe it, because they hung the founder and he lived for 3 years after that. 3 years. And
Oh my
the more
gosh.
research I did, I said, how many people have been hung and
then
lived?
lived.
So I started finding some stories where they were the Union soldiers at the time would rush through these towns, these little towns. And if they found Confederates, they would hang them and then take off, because the other people in the town would come after them. So what happened is
they hung him and they
hung
didn't
him.
bother to make sure he was dead.
Yes. And so his slave came and took him down, cut him down, and made sure he was okay. And
Did he actually survive?
Yes, he survived 3 years later. Yeah.
I don't think he was in great shape,
No.
because by that time,
Yeah.
he was already in his late 60s.
He was already, yeah.
Tilt to his head. My driver's making comments in the background. It is. It's fascinating.
But that's not even half of it, because then once we started getting into the Sullivan family, we found more and more interesting things that the family did. Well, I can let Tony talk.
No, it's okay, guys. This is a joint venture.
I know. That's why I should let Tony say something.
Well, we'll get to him in a minute.
Okay.
I want to know more about the stuff that you did.
Well, it's both of us. He put it together in the words, and I just found articles, and this article at this date in the paper, and then as the grandson of Sullivan in 1910, was it 10?
1920 that he passed away. Yeah.
So he passed away in 1920. I found an article and I thought, what the heck? Sammy Brown was coming to this gentleman's funeral from St. Clair. And St. Clair is just a few miles from
15 miles away.
And did you want to?
Well,
okay.
Just tell
it. Okay. So Sammy Brown is the son of Robert Brown, the man that cut down Stephen Sullivan. And in his obituary, Stephen Sullivan they had written about his grandfather being hung, and that Robert Brown cut him down, and Sammy was telling the same story. So over and over, the same story was being told. And
so there's validity there.
Yes. And we didn't believe it for a long time. We thought, no way.
Right. Well, yeah.
But then we started getting into more and more with the grandson and what he did for the town and what he tried to do to make up for what happened in the Civil War with his grandfather, and who was taking saltpeter from the cave, the Merrimack Cavern, and getting it to the Confederacy. And once he did that, he they caught him, and then they actually put him on trial. And we wrote to the National Archives, and they sent us the text, which is in the book in the appendix of his trial, that in 1961 and 62,
18.
I'm sorry, good, thank you, 1861 and 62, that he went on trial for being disloyal to the Union, to the government.
Right.
And so he even bragged about it, and he said, I'm a Confederate. I believe in slavery. This is my right. I'm in the United States. I can do this. And at the time, he kind of could.
Right.
So, but he was disloyal to the Union because he was feeding Confederate gunpowder. And so we have all kinds of stories that talk about how
this one family,
yes,
the Sullivan family.
Yes. And so if Tony, why don't you tell us about how Sullivan Town started?
Okay.
So the Sullivans, like Annie said, this was not illegal. Missouri never did secede from the Union.
Right.
Although the South recognized Missouri as a Southern state, and we've learned a lot of this by doing a deep dive into Civil War history. Missouri was the only state that had a flag in the Southern flag, and of course had a star in the Southern flag and a star still with the North. It never did secede. It was terribly ripped down the middle. Other than maybe Kansas, Missouri really had some sectional absolute differences,
Right.
and bushwhackers
Sullivan
and
was really strong.
Yeah, he was strong.
To have
strong.
a good community and a good town, and that's what he started.
Right. When he came through, Daniel Boone was a big portion of influencing people. He came originally when he was a young man with no kids.
Now, when you say Daniel Boone, he was a good influencer
in the group of people who came to Missouri.
Okay.
The story,
being Union or being
no, that was way back even in 1819, 1818,
okay.
so quite a bit before, because Daniel Boone died, I think, in 1822.
Okay.
So they came up through Potosi. He was young. He was in his early 20s. He and Dorcas, his wife, who was with him right along.
Yes.
Right through thick and thin. In fact, when he finally passed in 1867, she died about 5 days later in the town that they had made together. But anyway, they came up, and was legal in Sullivan. They began to buy slaves. In our research, we found some records of where he had bought his first purchase. Was a young girl of 4, and her name was Charlotte. And almost unbelievably, because the people that we've talked to later on, when they did census records every 10 years, they would state who somebody is, who their family is. And then they had a separate census they called it the slave census, and never was a name attached, except in this particular 1860 census, right before the Civil War. There were the remaining 11 slaves that the Sullivans still owned, including Charlotte, named Char, including Robert, who would one day cut him down, including Sam, who was at that time only 5 years old, Sam. They were all listed by name. That was something when we came upon that document, and the
because we were trying to figure out who it was that cut him down. What was his name?
Right.
So the person at that particular, that happened to be the Washington Historical Society, she was really happy for us and amazed, because she said this is not something that was required by the census taker. In fact, it was really not looked upon as good to put a name to a person. They were more like horses or cattle.
Right.
You had just so many, they were property. And I think maybe within the dictates of the time, possibly he treated them in a good enough fashion that one day Robert cut him down and helped him survive. And that finally, 60, 70 years later, when the grandson died, he came to his funeral to, I don't want to say show him his respects, but show they had kept up the humanity. They had kept up a correspondence over the years.
But the Sullivan started the town because of the railroad.
Right.
Okay.
And he bought land from two people. First, it was the Louisiana Purchase. So the government owned it. And then
some Hardys, of which there's still Hardys in Sullivan,
there's
bought the
still
land.
families in Sullivan
And
from
then
that
a
time.
Smith family had it. So he was the third person that owned the land of Sullivan after Louisiana Purchase.
Now, is there a house there?
It's gone. It's where City Hall is now.
Oh, okay.
So historically,
He's had
this
a
is
few
what we
different
found.
houses, but yes, that one is gone.
Yeah, the one in Sullivan.
Yes.
We actually, this may not even be in the book, but we found their old homestead about 3 miles out of Sullivan. And
is that home?
No.
But we talked to the current landowner, and she took us up in the far corner of a pasture, and we pulled back weeds and
Found
brush
gravestones.
and found gravestones.
Uh-huh.
Not from
wow.
not from the Sullivans, because they're buried in Sullivan, but for one of the sons that was
Wiley.
had died, Wiley, before the Civil War. He had 13 kids. The 3 boys, one died before the Civil War. The other 2 joined up immediately when the Civil War started for the South, and they were killed pretty early on down in Arkansas at the Battle of Pea Ridge, right after Wilson's Creek happened in Springfield. So that had no sons left. Now his 10 daughters went on to marry a lot of people, and there's a lot of people in Sullivan that can trace their heritage right back to the 10 daughters.
Seems
Well,
like
9 of them, because we even found the gravestone of one of the daughters that never did get married, and she was buried out on the farm too.
Oh, wow.
But
so
they started it with Sullivan Station. It used
Right.
to be Mount Helicon
right,
in that area.
and the
Okay.
railroad came through,
Uh-huh.
and they got with the railroad. By that time in his life, he was supplying the railroad with railroad ties.
Donated some
He was
land
kind
to
of an
them.
entrepreneur,
Mhm.
bought a lot of land, had a lot of slaves. I mean, he was very successful. So when the railroad was getting close, and he talked with the surveyors, worked up a deal where he would donate the land, build the depot, all free. And he and his slaves and his grandson, Stephen, also, there's a lot of names that repeat. It was brought in, and
Well, that's typical. The
Yeah.
repeating of names.
Absolutely.
I mean, my husband's got, I don't know how many Ralphs there are in the family.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's the
There's-
same with
yeah.
the Stephen Sullivans. There's
And it's
even
hard to keep
before,
track of them all.
right?
Yeah,
you got
it's like-
and so we call him Stephen the founder, and
Founder.
Stephen the builder.
Yeah.
And Stephen the builder
grandson.
really built up the town after the Civil War.
Yeah.
He left for 10 years, and we surmise that when the Union troops came in looking for his grandfather, he took off for Colorado and for 10 years, and then came back and decided he wanted to build up a new school, bring in industry. He brought the community together, and he really started the town again. He did it.
Brought it back.
Yes,
Brought
he
it back to
did.
life.
Yes, he did.
Eventually, he was mayor of
Yeah.
the town that he had cleared land for before the trains arrived in 1859.
Yeah.
So the centennial itself is really what we focused on, and the town.
But we have a lot of this in there as historic relevance.
There were so many good stories that as we put the stories to the pictures that we had, and we've got over 300 color and black and white pictures, then we thought, well, there's so much underpinning of history.
Right.
Let's tell that story too. So every now and then we break away from the story of the centennial and we back it up to 100 years previously or more recently than that.
So what other stories are there in there that would be of interest?
I think the biggest thread that we can see is the story of personal redemption, of how a community can get past maybe its start or the divisiveness of it, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And this theme that continually echoed through the town in the very beginning was very, very ripped in half. And then through the growth and through the years, it just echoes with what we get up and see in the news every single day.
This community in 56 was incredible. They pulled together, and they didn't take any outside money to support their their centennial. They raised it all. They had buttons for the guys, and if they didn't wear the buttons, they got put in jail. They built a little jail,
kangaroo court,
and we have all these pictures, and they're just so fun.
Yeah,
and they had to grow beards, so they were brothers of the brush. And then and there was a side story. We interviewed a lot of the older gentlemen in Sullivan
that were still around,
that and some of the ladies
Mm-hmm.
that could remember some of the things that went on, but and we were trying to get as many identified as possible in the pictures. And I don't know if you remember or if you knew Charlotte Peters at the time. In 1956, Charlotte Peters was
that was her very first year.
Yes.
She became kind of, how would you classify her locally? She
like
was
a Dinah Shore
Shore celebrity for
Yes.
about 12 years
Yeah.
in St. Louis.
Yeah.
She was a big TV influence at
Yeah.
that time. And then the band leader was
Russ David.
Russ David Band.
Uh-huh.
Well, she came
Orchestra.
out and she got involved in the respect of just promoting it.
Yeah,
and
I don't remember her.
she invited them all.
And so we have a lot of pictures, and she's judging the beards and looking at them, and they're laughing and
happy pictures.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're all just great. And then she would judge the ladies' outfits. They're all pioneers, Sisters of the Swish, where they would walk around in the big pioneer women's outfits, and they would they had buttons. They would raise money selling the buttons, and it was just so fun to see all the happy people, and they're all getting together. And there was over 300 people, and his mom and he, Tony's mom and he, were in Texas at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, how old were you? Like
three.
And
Since you want to put a date on it.
Yes.
My family was in Texas. My dad, my mom, my brother, and I were all in Texas.
Yes. And so his mom would write to his grandparents all the time. And so they saved the letters. So we have hundreds of letters from his grandma that was from his mom to them.
Talking about the centennial.
All the things that they did every day, almost every day, every other day, she'd write letters. That's how they communicated.
Right.
So that was cool. And so I said, I wonder if in one of those letters, and I looked around for 1956 in July and August, and there was a letter, and it said, that
they're amazed and so surprised, and all the people down in Texas are really loving the pictures. And I guess beards in 1956 just weren't a thing.
No,
not at all. They were clean shaven was the way.
Right.
And so this Brothers of the Brush that Annie alluded to was a way to show solidarity, to advertise, to raise money, even, which it was all about raising money because they didn't depend on city government or any other fund or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that was, so they decided to do this. Then they decided to have these pageants, 4 nights of the 5 days of the event. They put on a big play.
Okay.
And I'll tell you about that in just a minute.
Yeah, we're going to go to a commercial break. I even missed my radio identifier. Darn.
Oh, no, this is great.
Huh? Yeah, this has been wonderful. We've really got some good stuff going on here. But we're going to go to a commercial break. This segment of Author's Edge is sponsored by Kanetta Taylor, author of Dead Fed Said, available in paperback, Kindle, and Kindle Unlimited. Want to join Kanetta in supporting Author's Edge? Become a show sponsor and connect with passionate readers and industry insiders while helping us spotlight great stories and creators. Why sponsor Author's Edge? Reach thousands of book lovers, boost visibility and sales, target meaningful support, trusted host endorsements. And if you'd like to be a sponsor, call 573-714-1352. And let's chat about how we can feature you on Author's Edge, where authors and readers meet. Also, if you're in Missouri, here's another great opportunity. Consider joining the Missouri Writers Guild, a statewide network founded in 1915 that supports writers through workshops, conferences, contests, local chapters, and professional resources. Members gain access to a strong literary community and tools to grow their craft. Joining is easy. Just visit MissouriWritersGuild.org and sign up online. Whether you're a seasoned author or just starting out, there's a place for you in the Guild. And we are going to go to commercial break. Bada boom, bada bay.
El Potro Restaurant and Market, located at 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland, offers the finest variety of Mexican and Central American groceries and goods. El Potro Restaurant serves authentic Mexican and Central American cuisine, including daily specials, not to mention the best horchata and tastiest margaritas in St. Louis. Open 7 days a week. El Potro, 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland.
Merton Services is a heating, air conditioning, and commercial refrigeration business that's been providing exceptional services in St. Louis for over 50 years, and they take pride in providing services and comfort to both residential and commercial customers. With the temperatures rising in the summer and dropping in the winter, your comfort and health can be put in jeopardy. With proper checks and maintenance, Mertens will keep your equipment in top shape. And when it's time to replace your furnace or your air conditioner, they've got you covered. With a wide range of options, Mertens has the perfect HVAC system to fit all of your needs. To find out how the good folks at Mertens Services can help you with all of your HVAC needs, contact Mertens Services at 314-845-1500. That's 314-845-1500. Mertens Services, 314-845-1500.
The United States has a strong tradition of welcoming newcomers and refugees. The Welcome Corps is a new service opportunity for Americans inspired to welcome those seeking freedom and safety and in turn help strengthen their own communities. Welcome Corps is a public-private partnership that is inspired by what Americans represent to so many around the world, a beacon of hope and refuge. All it takes is a helping hand. Are you ready to learn more? Contact the International Institute of St. Louis at info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090. That's info@iistl.org or call 314-773-9090.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. And we're back. And we're back. And welcome back.
Thank you.
This is Author's Edge, where every conversation turns a new page and every story reminds us of why words matter. I'm your host, Gail Freer, joined by Annie and Tony Wessler today on KWRH929.com and KXOK102.com. And let's keep this story going. We are talking, well, I have so many questions, and I don't know if we're going to get to them all, but you gave me a quote. Okay. Sullivan was approaching its 100th birthday, and local folks felt an effort should be made to mark that milestone. A birthday party was in order, a celebration for the ages. What's remarkable is how Sullivan came to celebrate its centennial and the subject of this book. At the center of the celebration was its founder, Stephen Sullivan, and his legacy. It's the story of how a town shaped by the grit of pioneers, the pull of the railroad, and the fire of war took stock of his past and came together in a remarkable act of civic pride. The pageants, parades, beards, and dresses, even the reenactment of the harsh treatment of the founder for his beliefs at the end of the Civil War were not mere entertainment. They were acts of remembrance, a way of declaring that the sacrifices of pioneers, soldiers, farmers, and shopkeepers still mattered in an age of factories, automobiles, and neon lights. Above all, this is the story of how the citizens of Sullivan chose to be remembered. And why did you choose this passage to anchor the story?
Well, so I wrote that because that's what I got out of looking at these pictures, and particularly the research that Annie did with the editor of the paper or the owner of the paper was Dorothy O'Moore. Mm-hmm. She was a St. Louis person and a historian in her own right, and this was her first, or actually her second newspaper that she owned, and she wrote very well, almost like minutes each weekly paper. She would feature a story about the progression of the centennial, and she wrote very well. And we give her full credit in the book because it was really good to take her stories and then put it into our stories. The town, though, it just seemed like everyone got behind it. It was maybe it was the times, or maybe it was just the small town and the closeness of it, but every organization, just
But
about
we
every
looked
church.
Also, we did Googling and saw many towns did that.
Oh, yeah,
All over
right.
the United
Especially
States.
there was a lot of
Yeah.
towns as the railroad progressed, and a lot of towns celebrated their 100th anniversary. But not very many towns that we could see pulled out all the stops. Within about 8 months, they organized it, they put it together. The pageants that they did for 4 different nights, starting on the first day of the night of the whole event, they had big painted backdrops, and the Indians were in Sullivan, and there were 10 teepees out on the fairgrounds, and the Indian ladies and men in all their beautiful
Kids.
colors, and kids, and they had the fire. That was represented. And then as they were moved off, the original settlers came in their wagons, and actually the great grandson of the founder, they propped him up, Stephen Sullivan.
He was there.
He was there.
Yes.
He was there in one
Yes.
of the settler wagons, and then briefly the Indians came rushing back on scene on their horses, and they were running in circles, and then finally they were pushed away. And this is all from pictures from the Centennial. They represented the harshness. In actuality, the founder of the town, Stephen and Dorcas, their very first cabin on the Merrimack River close to Sullivan, was burned down by Indians. Well, they had gone for a few weeks for supplies, and they didn't have any kids at the time. But anyway, their very first cabin was burned. So what we found was the true history was kind of reimagined by the pageant people. Dorothy Moore wrote the script each of these nights. So after the pioneers came, there was a lot of work for harvesting furs and felling down trees.
Train track.
Then they came in, and it shows a lot of the Irishmen, and they came, and they're represented. They laid the railroad tracks through the fairgrounds, and then along came the very first puffer belly, and they had music in the background. And the train came to Sullivan. That was a very big deal, because that was really the beginning of Sullivan Station. And so that ended one night. And then, of course, right on the heels of that was the Civil War. And they had different churches and organizations, and the veterans of VFW were all represented.
And they were
the Rotary Club.
They talked about, and then in the paper in the 1914s and 16s, there's a gentleman named Keel, and he collected all kinds of stories about the Civil War, and a lot of it was Missouri, and even some of it was Sullivan. And so I picked out some stories, and there were ladies there that would talk about what they witnessed at that time, and because they were older, and it was just amazing the imagination of having the slaves there and having the people there, and they were fighting each other, and they were brother against brother. Stephen Sullivan had 2 of his sons run down to Pea Ridge, Arkansas, and fight with Price's raid. They were traveling through Missouri.
Did the Sullivans have any issues with part of the family being on the Union and part of the family being in the Confederacy?
Yes.
Actually, yes. Of the 10 remaining daughters, in the end, when their bequeathment after they died in 1867, they left one daughter out of the will.
Because
Don't really
she
know
married
why.
a Union person.
She married a fellow that was an officer in the Union Army.
Yes.
So
there was so much division.
And then their son actually came back and was old enough, and he fought for the Confederacy. So there was a tremendous amount of intermixing. And again, I said earlier, Missouri, unlike most states were either definitely northern or definitely southern. You didn't have that sectional difference that Missouri had to go through.
And the amount of difference between the Union and the Confederate in Missouri was a huge difference. So the minority was definitely the Confederacy.
Right.
And so that's why they kept trying to bust out and get upset and fight back. And then you had the Union boys coming in and just tearing them up and breaking them down, and they'd come back and fight.
Yeah.
So it happened. It happened lots of places. It just happened to Sullivan also. So all these knights of the pageant, the Civil War came. Eventually, Abraham Lincoln came. Lo and behold, not really, but he was in the pageant. So there he was, Gordian Mathis, and he was in the Rotary Club, and he looked pretty good as Abraham Lincoln, and he's silhouetted. And then he steps into the fairgrounds, and he calls the Confederates over, and he calls the Union officers over, and they have to shake hands in the middle of and let's let bygones be bygones. And so, yeah, very symbolic. And that ended one night of the pageant. And then after that, it went on into further times when Sullivan's, eventually World War I. The gay 90s were represented, and they had a lot of dancing and a lot of ladies in different outfits. And then World War I, the train came through with doughboys in their uniforms, and they're being fed, as did really happen in Sullivan, because historically this is what they did. Right. They gave them sandwiches and food, and they would stop. And then the Roaring 20s, they had the ladies mainly and the guys with their flappers and their skimmer hats, and they brought in an old jalopy, and they all did the Charleston. And we've got all that represented. And then they kind of breezed through the Great Depression. They had a little bit of our local post office, but then they finished up with they represented World War II with Iwo Jima and the raising of the flag on Mount Suribachi, which everybody knows, but they redid it. They had the soldiers, and they did the very solemn thing, and fireworks were in the background, and it must have been extremely moving. It kind of comes through with these still things. And then the final night, everybody that had anything to do, they had them all lined up with the Indians and the cavalry and the Union and the pioneers and the
it must have been
soldiers.
Massive.
It was massive.
Over 300
people. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
300 people participated
in a town of about 2,500, I think, at that time.
Yeah.
So wow.
It was amazing. And that's what the kind of community thing that we just wanted to express on the book too, to show that this has happened.
This is an unbelievable
and it can happen anywhere.
It started small. We didn't know the road that we would travel down, and it's been so fun. We're retired.
Okay, so now I want to talk about what strengths this is an unbelievably huge project that you two did. Okay, what strengths did each of you bring to this project? I mean, you have 2 engineering degrees.
So I have a technical strength where I love to research and find mysteries and solve puzzles. So like the puzzle of what the heck did he really get hung? And so I just kept looking for a long time. I found nothing. And I thought, well, how the heck? So I'd find an article here or there, and then I'd follow it up with more articles and research. And then I wrote to the National Archives. I said, have you ever heard of Stephen Sullivan being hung? And then they said, no. This is when they sent me in 61 and 62 his transcript of his being under court for being disloyal to the Union. And so I thought, So they said they didn't see anything else. And then I went through there's different places to look for military history, and they didn't have anything. But the more I looked in the newspapers, they had stories about Sammy Brown, the son of Robert Brown, who took him down. And I thought, well, why would they talk about that? And then I saw another one where the grandson talked about Stephen Sullivan, but he left out the part where he got hung. And I'm thinking it's because he wasn't even around. I think that's the time when he left and went to Colorado and got the heck out. He didn't want to be.
He didn't want to be part of this whole thing.
He didn't want to be hung also.
Right. Well, yeah.
So, and because they were looking to hang him, there was a side story where there was a gentleman that. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a doctor, and the story goes that this doctor was living at the house of Sullivan's, close to the railroad tracks. He was a boarder there, and
they boarded a few Confederates.
And early one morning, some Union cavalry came up, and they were looking for someone, but Dr. Butler came up to the front gate, and they said, well, are you Southern or Northern? And he said, I'm a Southerner. And with that, they shot him in the heart, and he dropped down. And they said, if anybody touches him, they're going to come up with the same thing. So the founder, Stephen Sullivan, the next day drug him off in the garden and buried him. But this is the critical part. After the Civil War, he was reinterred in what was called Buffalo Cemetery,
which is in
Sullivan. Does
Mhm.
have an old cemetery,
Uh-huh.
kind of back behind the Eagles Cemetery. And so one Sunday afternoon, we thought, well, could there be any truth to this? And
So we started looking for the graves.
And
Yeah.
you know, the old ones are hard to see. You can't really read it.
Some of them were broken.
And there was one stacked up on top of each other. And Annie called me over and she said, hey, come here a minute. This has got a date. And we went
1864.
And, we pieced it all together, and it was just chilling there.
And there's a picture
big,
of it.
in the book. But there's John Butler,
Dr. John
Butler, and it has the actual date that he was killed, which absolutely lines up with oral tradition. And
the newspaper stories.
Stories. And so those kind of things, it just showed things happened.
Right,
it was a very, very.
How many drafts did you do for this book?
Oh my gosh. 100. Because at first he was just sitting off in the corner, putting his pictures together and then writing some words with each picture. And I just left him alone. I said, yeah, you go do that. Keep busy.
Yeah. Stay out of my hair.
Yes.
Yeah. You're both retired. You don't want to. Yeah. Yeah. I understand that concept. We're both retired. Yeah. You do your thing. I'll do my thing. And let's not kill each other.
And he did that for months. And I just said, okay, good. And he'd read me some things. And I said, okay, good. And then I thought, well, I'm curious. So I started looking in the papers and we even went down to the library downtown, which was it's an amazing library. And we went up to the genealogy area, and those people are just so great. Yes, they love to help you.
The genealogy people are.
And after 2 or 3 times there, they said, oh, you're the one that's writing the book about the hanging founder. And we said, yeah.
That's us.
But it was just wonderful to be able to have them point us to the right directions and say, this is where you need to look for this or this. And we did. We found so much information. And
describe your writing process.
Well, he writes things down because he has very good fluency with the way he speaks. And then I kind of look at it, and I like to put in more of the picture.
Who does the most editing? Who does the editing?
He's hard on himself and edits himself a lot.
I go back over it a lot, and I think it's poetry. And I give it to her, and she takes her pen up, and she says, "No, this is not my idea. No, this." And I say, "It's poetry," and she says, "Yeah, well."
How do you keep your love alive with this?
Oh, it's good.
No,
we respect each other's strengths.
Now, actually, it's come to the point that we've actually decided to take it up a notch, and we've gotten with some people here in St. Louis. We met with them, and they're going to hopefully help us. They've looked at the draft of what we have so far, and they see that possibly this could really be good. So we're for the first time, we're going to have maybe a professional eye look at it for sure. Someone
I will
edit it.
I publish books. I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't hire somebody to edit your book, don't bother.
Yeah.
Well, we are.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
We are.
I really and truly, you have to have a professional edit your book.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yep.
Okay. That is the one place that I always recommend. If you don't spend your money anywhere else, that is the place to spend it.
Yes.
Right.
That is the number one place to spend it. Editing your book. So if you were to borrow a piece of each other's brain, what part would you want to borrow?
Well, Tony knows everybody.
Okay.
And everybody knows Tony.
Okay.
We've been in South Africa.
That's how he is.
And he'll see somebody, Tony. And I'll say, what? We go into St. Louis. I lived in St. Louis all my life, in between traveling for work and stuff. But he we'll be up there, and there's a lineman that comes in to fix a pole for electric, and they'll say, "Hey, Tony." I thought, what the heck? So I guess that would be my part to get out of him, is to be able to see
To
people and
recognize people.
recognize them.
Yeah.
But I just don't. And
Yeah, me neither.
They feel like I'm, I guess, I don't know.
I don't know. Me neither. How about you? What would you?
Well, lots, and maybe just the most obvious is her ability to handle computers and keep up with everything, whether it's whatever. I mean, the newest of everything. And
I've learned patience.
And she
he's been so good learning.
We do disagree. I carry an iPhone and she carries an Android, so we have the full spectrum covered on that. I do not want an Android, and she doesn't want an Apple. So, but anyway, we make it work, and we do that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You're tuned into Author's Edge, where stories take center stage and creativity has no speed limit. I'm your host, Gael Freer, chatting today with Annie and Tony Wessler on KWRH929.com, KXOT102.com. Okay, so why do you think this book might be interesting to people who may never have heard of Sullivan, Missouri?
Because it's something that's happened in every city, I think. And I think for today, especially, it shows how people can get back together after being killing each other in the Civil War, being so divided, and then bring it back together.
How to bring it back.
Yes.
How to bring us together again.
Yes. And that's how we are today.
Yeah.
And I really think that relates.
It's a story really of it sounds highfalutin, but say a story of redemption, of coming back together. If Sullivan can do it after its really, really bitter start, there's hope. There's hope for the future. And I don't want to make it too big of a thing, but there was heavy and deep and long-lasting bitterness in Sullivan. There was in Missouri. There was in the country. Right. And that echoed down through the generations. And hopefully,
I guess we never really healed from the Civil War either.
Not completely.
We didn't. Never did.
No, we have not.
Sullivan chose to remember its past, not to glorify it, but to remember it, and to know that you can get over it in a way, and yet maybe not get over some parts of it. Keep the good and fix the part that was broken. Right. And again,
do you think Sullivan has fixed it?
I think so. I don't know.
In 56, it seemed like they did.
They did.
But then, of course, you have the rest of the.
There's a lot of reliance now for local people on government again. That there's not that self-resiliency and self-reliance that there was in 56.
And there's got to be leaders that help us to do that, to pull together. The leaders have to be able to bring back industry, bring back respect for each other.
Strong leaders. Yes. We originally started the book with Stephen Sullivan, the founder. Actually, the Stephen Sullivan, the grandson, the builder, has as much to do with the success of Sullivan.
And then the great-grandson.
And even the great-grandson. Now, that's not saying anything less about the many, many, many families that helped grow
the
Sullivan.
other founders.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't. Not one person.
No.
One person doesn't do it.
No.
But we weren't writing the history of Sullivan. We were writing the history of the centennial. Right. So as long as it had something even obliquely to do with the centennial, we could squeeze it in.
And we saw the story just pull itself together like that.
It's on its own. Yes. It's almost like the story wrote itself.
Yes, it did. And it was fun seeing all the pictures were just great.
Oh, yes. When
there was a lady, Pierre,
the daughter
of the photographer. He was involved a lot in
Pierre
the
Studios
in the Sullivan book, and the 56. And he had a lot of portraits he did, and there are a lot of people in there. And she was so gracious, and she had us come and look at all these.
Pulled out her dad's old negatives, and we did a lot of transposing from the negatives to the positive image. Just about everything that's black and white was something that Pierre took.
We rigged up a thing, and he did it. He rigged up a little fixture that has a light coming out of it.
Right.
and then he put
Change the
the
negative over to
to
positive.
positive on paper.
So
It was pretty cool. Yeah.
What was the most surprising thing you learned about while writing this book?
That he actually lived another 3 years after getting hung.
Yeah, I would think that would be quite shocking.
But that the community pulled together so greatly. 300 people. I just can't believe it. That many people were involved, and they did it. They had other leaders too. They had the person from the cave, Merrimack Cabins.
Mary Dill.
And Les Dill was, we spoke to him.
Well,
and,
the grandson of Les. Yeah.
And then, what was his name? I can't think of it. I'll think of it in a minute.
Just a lot of different people stepped forward.
Yes.
To
so many people we interviewed.
And how it's important. Sullivan really doesn't realize it now, but because of the centennial, right that same year, the city realized this thing's going to be huge, and they built a big concrete grandstand that's still there and still used in that particular part, Sonny Jim Bottomley Park. They bought extra land and tore down houses for parking. Now that's where our community pool is. That's where some soccer fields
There's a lot of leftovers
and that's
there.
where some, it's...
Well, that's wonderful.
It
though.
is.
Yes, and the
was
grave of
yeah.
Stephen Sullivan isn't in a graveyard where everybody else is. He's in the front of a house on a little plot in the front yard of a house. That's a little rental house.
Yeah, a little nondescript rental house.
Yes,
There's
it used to be a field. But over the times, people bought up land and bought up pieces and built houses around it. And he and Dorcas are right there at that
right in the middle of the
site.
Yeah, right downtown. They wanted to be on the highest lot in Sullivan, and it happened to end up being over on Washington Street, right on the edge. There's just woods behind it. But she's right. There's just little small rental houses up and down Washington Street, and there it is in somebody's front yard is this big granite monument.
And it's huge. It's as large as this. Yeah, it's a big trash can. Yeah, it is. It's huge. Can. No, this.
Oh, that's a
refrigerator.
Yeah,
it's as big as a small refrigerator. Yeah. Sorry.
So later on, that was identified.
When writing about history, how do you keep readers from thinking, "Oh, that could never happen," but it probably could happen? You know, like how do you keep readers believing what you're saying? How do you keep that going?
I will say Annie not only researches, but she prints off tons and tons. We changed our printer so that we have the printer where you put the ink in it rather than having the old cartridge because it was just too expensive. But anyway, she prints the internet and she documents it. We have a bibliography that she kept track of if it's in the book, she can back it up with a printed out statement. So
or we saved on a file.
And we try to be accurate with that because there is a lot of
things that are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
like the hanging and the
right.
staying alive for 3 years afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of documentation to back up a lot of these things.
What common traps for aspiring writers did you encounter? And what challenges did you face when writing this book?
Not believing it ourselves at first. and then not understanding what those pictures meant. We had a scattered 100 pictures. Started off to be maybe 100, 200. Then now it's over 300. But the pictures tell a story, but they were all mixed up. They were just like, what the heck happened here? So then we eventually we had to sort them out into stages, into timing, into years or something.
We've staying on topic, in my opinion, was one of the bigger ones because we had enough material maybe for 3 books that were
right. How did you narrow that all down?
We continually tried to circle around back to the centennial. If the centennial planners chose to show it on one of those nights of the pageants, or if they wanted to show it in one of the 2 parades they had, or if they wanted to feature whatever they featured, that's what we tried to focus on. And so that's historically what we tried to do. As I said, there was so much about the real history behind the history that we kind of break away and say this is just a historical step aside, and we tell about what may have been the reasons that the Centennial planners did what they did, or Dorothy Moore, what she used to do her writing for the pageant. So that was maybe a big challenge, was to narrow down what we did to the 250 pages of text and the 300 pictures. And even with that, we sent it to one company, a possible publisher, and they said, well, this is just too niche. And I'm thinking, gosh, okay, it seems so broad. But that was a challenge, trying to focus on what we needed to stay focused on.
And once we heard that too, we decided, okay, so if it seems niche to them, how do we not fix it, but how do we
Make it less niche?
Yes. And so that's what we've been doing also. We rewrite.
Have rewrite. You now, do you have a publisher?
No, we don't.
We have an idea of one or two or three, but it's hard to pick one. And so I think we'll have to look and see what they've published before, and then see if it fits with our style of book.
I think in my mind, a publisher was somebody who would take your idea and say, we're going to run with it, we're going to promote it, we're going to do it all, we're going to put the book out, and we'll give you residuals.
You realize publishers don't do that.
No, I'm finding that out now. That's like lightning striking.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there can't be somebody out there that's a Steinbeck or somebody, but it isn't us. So we finally decided that isn't going to happen. So we'll self-publish. Fortunately, we're retired. We've done okay in our life. We have the funds that I'm not saying we really have a budget, but we know going in with eyes wide open, as you mentioned earlier, have an editor. We want to have someone edit it. We want to have somebody look at it and say, your story's good, but you need to really think about this. Maybe a person that can.
I have some recommendations for you.
Great.
Okay.
After the show, I will give you some information.
Super.
Right?
That's great.
Okay.
And then we want to publish it finally in a way, or have it printed. I'm sorry, that will lend.
Were you looking at like a coffee table type?
Maybe not that big, but certainly
this is how it is here.
Yeah,
it's in
hardback,
8.5 by 11, because that's what we write on. Pages, and we print them out.
Probably hardback.
Yeah,
and definitely we want to do some quality. I don't want to do just a kind of a soft cover manuscript that you can end up on the bottom thing.
We have so many people that want to see it.
Right. I understand that. I have some thoughts for you.
Okay,
after
and
the
we
show,
will
I'll give you
appreciate
some
that.
thoughts.
Yeah.
We can come back next week and talk on air.
Well, I have some things for next week. But the other thing is, you do have another book that you did, right? For your mom?
Yes. My mom
Real quick, because we're down to 3 minutes.
Okay. Jill's first day of school was my sister, Jill,
Mm-hmm.
and she was deaf. She was born deaf. I have 9 brothers and sisters, and there's 4 of them that were deaf. And my mom made them all read lips. And so they went to CID. And CID,
Central Institute for the Deaf here in St. Louis.
And so they both worked together to make all my deaf brothers and sisters live in the hearing world. And so that was from there.
And the name of the book is?
Jill's First Day of School.
And it's on, is it on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay.
True story of 10-year-old girl, deaf girl.
Okay. All right. So if you want to see that, Jill's First Day of School. And it's by
Tony and Annie
Wessler. So that would be something that you might want to check out. So thank you both, Annie and Tony, for being on Author's Edge. Tune in again next week for more tips, resources, and favorite conversations. You can catch us every Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 7 a.m. on KWRH FM 92.9 and KXOK FM 102.9, or stream online at KXOK 102.9.com, KWRH929.com, and on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and TuneIn. We're also heard nationwide Monday to Friday, 8 to 9 on My Genre Radio Network. And our next guest will be Chris Naffinger, and we will be chatting about his fascinating book, Adam Lempe and the Western Brewery. And I'm hoping he's going to bring us some beers. Till then, we'll see you next time around the inkwell. Boom!